All right, guys, welcome in. How you doing? Gabe DeArmond here, live on the Boulevard Brewing Company post-game drink after Missouri loses to Georgia. Final score of 49-14. A game that honestly didn't really seem as close as the score. We just finished up talking to Eli Drinkwitz on Zoom after the game. We will play that for you guys in a minute. Obviously, a big part of the post-game drink is that we have a post-game drink. So there it is right now, a tall Tank 7. I feel like most of you might have started that, I don't know, about 2 hours ago. Drinkwitz's press conference, and we'll play it for you here in a minute, but I thought he said a couple of very obvious but very good things. I mean, he started out and he said, bottom line, we just don't have enough depth. We're not at a place where we can compete with them yet. I mean, and that's true. Like, sometimes it's just about the other guys and them being better. He also said toward the end of his press conference, and you'll hear this quote, but this is worth remembering. He said, look, our guys have had a hell of a season, and I'm not going to let this day ruin that. He said, we don't lack fight, we lack bodies. I mean, today was as simple as they played a team that is much better than they are, and that team played well, and Missouri didn't play very well. So you got a subpar effort from an okay team and a good effort from a really good team. And that's the result is 49-15 or 49-14. I mean, we can pick this apart all we want to, but it really just comes down to that. Georgia has more talent, and it played better on this day. Georgia's better at every position. There's not a player from Missouri that would start for Georgia except probably Nick Bolton. And maybe in this rake straw, like in a year or two. But I really can't think of another one. And, we'll get into all this. And I want you guys to hear Eli Drinkwitz say it, but somebody asked him, did you consider, doing something to help your cornerbacks on George Pickens? And he said, well, we couldn't stop the run. We gave up 316 yards rushing. So we were trying to bring extra defenders into the box to stop the run. And when you do that, you have to leave the receivers one-on-one. And that's a bad recipe. I mean, Missouri couldn't start anything. Missouri couldn't stop anything. And it couldn't really get anything going on offense. And Missouri doesn't have George Pickens, and it doesn't have Zamir White, and it doesn't have Ben Cleveland. Bottom line, there's just not enough talent. I do want to say before we play the Drinkwitz press conference, this is brought to you by Boulevard Brewing Company, the post-game drink. That's what we do every week. We hang out. We have a couple beers. We talk about the game. I've found people generally like to talk about wins more than losses. A game like this, I hope we get enough action to kind of make this go for a while before and lead into basketball pregame. I hope you guys have some thoughts. We get some calls. We do all that. We will take calls after Drinkwitz's press conference. But the first thing we do here every week is we let you hear from the head coach. This wrapped up less than 10 minutes ago. So I'm going to play Eli Drinkwitz for you, and then we'll come back and kind of talk about it, and we'll take your calls.
Yeah, good football team. Congrats to them. We're not there right now with our program and able to compete every down. Need your best stuff in order to beat a team like that. And we didn't have it today, and we got to get it back. Got to find a way to fix it and get it back. But hats off to them. We got to play better. Didn't play well enough on offense or defense. I thought our special teams gave us a chance, but offense and defense really didn't do anything to give us a chance. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Vahe Gregorian from the Star. Go.
Hi, Coach. You alluded to this a little bit, but you guys have gotten so much done this year. But what did you learn about your foundation, I guess, today, and in terms of what you were talking about earlier this week?
Yeah, I mean, I was proud of the way our guys fought. I mean, everybody was still trying to encourage everybody on the sideline to keep on going, but we don't have enough depth. I mean, we're playing with 59 scholarship players right now. I mean, the NCAA gave us a four-person penalty. That's pretty bad. That's a significant penalty. And then we've had transfers and opt-outs, and we just don't have enough depth right now. We're gonna have to find a way to manufacture some depth We've been able to do that when the offense is able to keep the ball, but we weren't able to keep the ball away from them today and just exposed our defense.
Mitchell 40 from Power Mizzou. Go ahead.
Eli, Georgia had some success on third downs, particularly third and long. Was there anything that stood out as a theme on some of those breakdowns?
I'll have to go back and look at the tape. I mean, some success is putting it nicely, but I'll have to go back and look at the tape to figure it out. I mean, they were open. We got pressure a couple of times there in the second quarter when we got back in the game, but it didn't seem like we could get back to that pressure. And so we'll have to go back and check the tape, figure out what it was, try to fix it.
Dave Matter from the St. Louis Post. Dave.
Eli, when you watched that in real time, where did you see that Georgia had kind of the biggest advantages as far as just personnel goes and matchups on the field?
In the trenches. Both sides of the line of scrimmage. I mean, they rushed for 299. They rushed for 316 yards, and we rushed for 22. So both sides of the line of scrimmage.
Andrew Kaufman, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, can you take us through your decision with 37 seconds left before halftime to just kind of let the play clock run out and go in down 7?
Yeah, we were. I had flashbacks of what we did at Florida. We'd given up one right there and didn't want to risk. I knew they were getting the ball to start the second half and didn't want to risk really losing the momentum. Felt good being at halftime 21-14. Told our team, hey, we're right in position. Needed to come out and get a stop, and we didn't. They scored every possession in the third quarter, and offensively, we weren't able to do anything with it. So, we weren't able to mount that charge, but I thought we were in good position.
Eric Blum from the Columbia Daily Tribune. Eric.
Eli, do you think you learn more from games like this compared to maybe wins against Vanderbilt or Arkansas?
I mean, you try to learn from every situation. I don't know if you learn more or less from anything. So, I don't know. I know that I take every game and evaluate it, whether it was Vandy, Arkansas, or Georgia, and try to improve. And like I said, we got a long way to go. Our goal is to be competitive in the SEC East. And right now, the two teams in the top of the SEC East we weren't competitive with. So we got our work cut out for us. That starts with me in recruiting and player development.
Peter Baugh from The Athletic. Peter.
Eli, from your angle, what kind of went wrong on the interception he threw in the first quarter? And I guess, how do you evaluate his performance overall today?
Ball tipped off our player's hands. We're supposed to run a clear out with the X receiver right there. He obviously didn't get the corner cleared out. So I don't think there was anything else Connor could have done. He hit the wide receiver in the hands, and the X doesn't do his job. So, I mean, Connor played okay. Didn't obviously play great. He's got to do a better job in the pocket, and but he made some good throws. But they're a good defense, and we didn't give them enough opportunities. We didn't give our two of our better players, Larry and Beatty, didn't really affect the game. So that's on me. I got to do a better job of getting those guys involved in the game, and I got to call better plays. I mean, obviously the second play of the game wasn't a very good play call. So not the X receiver's fault, not the wide receiver's fault. It's my fault. Wasn't a good play call.
Suichi Terada, go ahead.
Hey, Eli, when Georgia scores, 4 or 5 straight touchdowns, is there anything you can do to kind of maybe slow down momentum or maybe give, your defense a little bit of a rest or anything?
Yeah, we got to try to get a first down. We got to try to stop the bleeding offensively by scoring, and we weren't able to do that. So, yeah, I mean, it all works together. Everybody's got a job to do. Our job on offense is to score and to get first downs, and we didn't do it.
Aaron Ladd, go ahead.
Eli, is there a message to your team during that third quarter where it seems like Georgia's just moving the ball and scoring at will? Is there something that you're saying, trying to get a stop there?
I mean, just keep encouraging them. I mean, it's not a lack of effort. It's not a lack of trying. It's just we weren't getting it done today. Like I said, didn't have our best stuff. So bounce back, come back tomorrow, flush it, and get ready for Mississippi State.
Mitchell 40, Power Mizzou. Mitch.
Eli, I know you touched on Connor a little bit already, but was he banged up at all from that, from when he had to exit the game? Was that a factor at all in his performance afterwards? Do you know?
Yeah, he was beat up. We're all beat up. Everybody's beat up. Ninth game in the SEC schedule. We've been practicing since July 24th. It's December 12th. We're all beat up. So it is what it is.
Dave Matter.
I didn't see a whole lot of Gillespie in the second half after he made that big stop. Was he knocked out or available?
Yeah, he's got an injury that kept him out from returning the rest of the game. We'll evaluate it. I didn't have an update before I came up here, but I'll let y'all know as soon as I know.
Bill Pollock.
Yeah, Eli, this is the sixth time now in 9 games that you've allowed 35 or more points. Defensively, is it a personnel issue, a coaching issue that it seems like a high amount of points to give up on almost a weekly basis?
Yeah, I'll have to evaluate it, look at it at the end of the season. I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch the tape. I wasn't aware of that statistic. So, we're trying to do the very best we can. And, yeah, we'll have to go back and look at it. I don't know. It's a good question.
Ben Fredrickson.
Coach, you mentioned recruiting and that gap that you see out there at certain positions in the field with the signing period coming up next week. How do you evaluate what you've been able to do in recruiting, and where do you want to go in recruiting to help kind of fill that gap against the teams like Georgia and Florida?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of recruiting, but we've had opt-outs, we've had NCAA penalty. I mean, it's not like, we just don't have enough guys right now to play an in-depth team the way we need to. But I don't know. My mind's not really focused on that question, to be honest with you. I just got my butt whipped by Georgia, so trying to figure out how to improve my football team. We'll go recruit, but I don't have any philosophical answers about who we're going to go recruit and all that right now. I just know we got to improve.
Kyle Pennell, go ahead.
Coach, you've seen Georgia's running backs on film all week, and now that you've coached against them, what were they able to do so well against your defense, and what is the most challenging aspect when it comes to dealing with the running backs that Georgia had?
I don't know if it was their running backs or their offensive line. There was some good holes. They made us miss a couple of tackles. We didn't chase it down the backside in some of our schemes. Sometimes in our schemes, they had us with, cutoff blocks. So I have to go back and watch the tape. And we knew they had good offensive line. We knew they had a good run game. We weren't able to stop it.
Jack Sobel.
Eli, it looked like George Pickens was able to take advantage of the one-on-one matchups that he had. Were there any adjustments that you guys tried to make on defense to prevent those matchups from happening and help out Ish and Ennis?
Well, I mean, we gave up 316 yards rushing, so we were trying to load the box. And if you load the box and you leave the wideouts one-on-one, it's kind of pick your poison type deal. And so, we felt like we needed to try to stop the run, and we weren't able to do that unless we put extra people in there, and then that opens up the pass game. So just wasn't very effective today.
Looks like we got 2 more. Bennett Durando, go ahead.
Eli, you mentioned everyone feels beat up. Have you ever been in a situation where at this point in the season it feels like everyone is beat up to this extent? And when opponents are scoring 48, 49 points in back-to-back games, where do you sort of try to regain that last boost for one more regular season game and a bowl game?
We just got to dig deep. I mean, that's football. That's toughness. That's what football is all about, digging deep, finding a way. We got to rally as a team, rally as a coaching staff. We've had a hell of a season up to this point. I'm not going to let this game define this season. I'm not going to let today's disappointed. We didn't have our best stuff. That's part of it. Wish we would have played better. We didn't. You know what? Our guys have answered the bell every single time. They answered the bell in the fourth quarter on fourth down. I don't question their fight. I don't question our team's fight. I don't question our coaching staff's fight. We're going to have to dig deep, get in the cold tubs, put a little grit, put a little toughness in there, go on the road and find a way to win. And our team will respond. They've responded every game. We responded when we were down, had lost the first 2. Didn't look pretty. We responded right there. We'll respond after we, got beat by Florida. We'll respond. I'm not worried about that. This team doesn't lack fight, just lacks bodies right now, lacks depth. So we'll get there. We'll get it. It's we lost, but hope's not lost. Like I told them, I'm disappointed in the result. I'm not disappointed in the team at all. So, yeah, we got our butt whipped. That's part of it, man. How you bounce back, that defines who you are as a person, as a team, as a coach. So, yeah, I'm not going to stress about it, to be honest with you. I'm going to stress about how we can fix it, how I can get more than 59 scholarship players. But I can't fix that right now. I got 2 games left, and we're going to dig deep, and we're all going to find a way to band together and win. That's what we're going to do.
All right, last one's going to come from Jeff Sentel. Jeff, go ahead.
Coach, I guess it's a question. This looks like this was an optimal day for Georgia. In your opinion, is this the quarterback? Is that what makes Georgia so much different than maybe what you've seen on film earlier this year?
Yeah, I mean, I got no idea. I got no idea if it's the quarterback or if it's our lack of depth or if it's their O-line or whatever. They just got a good football team, and we didn't get it done today. I don't really have a comment on, I'm not in that room with them, so I don't know what makes them tick versus what doesn't.
All right, we'll let Coach go.
All right, so there's Eli Drinkwitz after a 49-14, I mean, as he put it, butt whipping by Georgia. I mean, it was. And look, we try to make this more difficult than it is, right? We try to look for all these reasons, and this happened, and I actually thought for a minute, hey, I really thought that Georgia drive right before halftime that made it 21-14 was a big deal. No, it wasn't. Georgia was better than Missouri by a lot today. And that one drive wasn't going to change anything. 14-14 at half would have been just a little more misleading than 21-14 at half was. So there's a lot there. But my overriding takeaway, and I do want to say, anytime anybody wants to call in, please feel free to call in at this point. There's the number. We're going to leave that up on the screen all day long. 573-234-4935. If you call in, we'll grab your call. Sometimes we get more than one at a time. Sometimes we have to either put people on hold, we have to add you and make you wait. Sometimes you have to call back, but we'll get to you. I'm planning to be here till like 6:30 if need be, because we want to turn this into a basketball pregame show before Missouri, Illinois too. So we will get to that at some point, but feel free to call in. But until you do call in, what we'll do is I'll go through some of my thoughts. There's a lot of comments and questions over here building up, and we'll get to those as well. But my main takeaway from Eli Drinkwitz is thank you for just being honest. For, hey, too many times you see coaches of teams that are clearly outmanned get up there and say, no, we expected to win the game. Well, sure, everybody hopes to win the game, right? But Eli Drinkwitz knew what he saw today. And what he saw was a team that didn't have enough guys to compete with the team on the other sideline. We're going to jump to the phone lines, and we're going to go to the 636 area code first. Who am I talking to?
Hey, this is Brandon, St. Louis.
Hey, what's up, Brandon? How you doing, man?
Good, man. Just curious on your thoughts. I just kind of hopped on, so sorry if I missed a question on this, but just curious on your thoughts on Ryan Walters and how much this is talent versus coaching. I know we talked earlier about just a mismatch with a good team in Georgia, but back-to-back upper 40s losses, and just curious on your thoughts on Walters.
Yeah, I think this game today was just a talent mismatch. I mean, like Drinkwitz said, we couldn't stop the run, so we put more guys in the box to stop the run, and then we couldn't stop George Pickens, right? So you can't stop everything. He called it pick your poison, and Missouri couldn't stop anything. So I think today was more talent. But look, the defense hasn't been good. It has given up 35 6 times this year. You go back, okay, Alabama you can excuse, and it's an elite offense. Florida you can excuse, elite offense. Georgia, they're outmanned, but Arkansas, are they outmanned by that much? Tennessee shoved them around. So there are definitely some issues. And Brandon, I'm going to add a call in here with us. So if I cut you off, I apologize. I don't mean to. I'm answering your question. But definitely talent was an issue today. Overall, are there scheme things that can be fixed? Maybe. But the other thing we got to remember is Kobe Whiteside's played like 2 games this year. Trey Williams just opted out. I don't believe Nick Bolton's healthy, watching him the last 2 games. Jarvis Ware was hurt today. Markel Utsy's been hurt and suspended. They've had guys in and out of the lineup. So, I understand questioning Walters, but I don't – there's a lot that's not at his feet too, right? So, I'm not sure I would fire him based on this season, but I absolutely think it's fair to have questions.
Gotcha. Thanks.
So, yeah, Brandon, appreciate the call, man. And I know we were having trouble. A couple of people called. We were having trouble adding you to the call, so please call back and we will get you in. I promise. It's the software we use every now and then is a little hit and miss. Here we go. We're going back to the phone lines in the 309 area code. Appreciate. We tried to add you last time. It didn't work. But who am I talking to?
Hey, Gabe. This is Dalton here from Chicago. How you doing?
What's up, Dalton? How are you doing, man?
Good. I've been waiting here earlier, so I didn't mean to jump the gun. But yeah, I just want to kind of reiterate the point where I think there's philosophically there's something that Mizzou Nation has not accepted yet. And that is recruiting really matters, and recruiting matters when it's accumulative over years and years and years.
Yes.
And I think when we first jumped into the SEC, we won in 2013, we won in 2014. I think people got this idea of, we can kind of recruit at that 25 to 35 and we'll be okay.
Yeah.
Well, what changed is that Kirby got hired and nobody in the country is recruiting better than Georgia. Nobody. And when that gets accumulated over them recruiting at the best in the country and we're recruiting at the 13th best in the SEC, we are going to be out-talented almost every single week. And I thought Eli nailed it when he said, we got beat up in the trenches. And in the trenches, I don't think we have one even NFL draft pick, much of NFL player. And I think Georgia looked like they had about 3 or 4 guys on the offensive or defensive line in terms of just big, fast, strong, long, lengthy guys. And to me, it's not that hard. You can't out-scheme getting beat up all day. It's like what Mike Tyson used to say. Everybody's got a plan until you get punched in the mouth.
100%. Today was fully about talent, and your larger point is right. Look, Gary Pinkel was – I think Gary Pinkel is underrated as a coach because he made Missouri fans believe that you can land recruiting classes in the mid-30s and go play for conference titles. You really can't unless you're him. No. He managed to do it. It is the great exception. If you look on paper, right now, Missouri is the less talented team, I would guess, against 11 of the other 13 teams in the SEC minimum. They have more talent than Vanderbilt. There might be one other one. But as far as recruiting goes, it says that Missouri is probably 13th in this league. That's what it's been over the last 4 years. That's the team Eli Drinkwitz has. Now, so what's the goal for Missouri? We talked about this during the game. You're never going to be better than 7th in this league. Auburn, Alabama, LSU, Florida, Georgia, and Texas A&M. They're going to beat you in recruiting rankings every single year. It's a geographic, historical thing. They just are. But if you can get up to where you're 7th or 8th, then you can be close enough that you can close that gap in good coaching and development, and catching teams on the right day can close the gap. And that's what Pinkel did. He wasn't the best recruiting team in the Big 12, but he also wasn't the worst. He was close enough that he found guys that, that 3rd and 4th year in the program, he could turn into players that could beat those other teams on the right days. That's what Drinkwitz has to do. But there's no question. It was just a talent issue. And in Georgia's recruiting, people don't understand. They have recruited every bit as good as Alabama. They are Alabama right now. They just haven't won the right game to qualify as Alabama.
No, you're spot on. And the biggest thing is like you said, in life, too many people want to point towards the exception and not the rule. Mm-hmm. The rule is in major college athletics, if you do not recruit at a very high level year after year, you are going to struggle. Look at Tom Herman. Look at some of these coaches over the past couple of years. If their recruiting starts to fall off a little bit, all of a sudden the on-field results start to fall off a little bit. Gary Pinkel was the exception, not only here at Mizzou, but like you said, in major Power 5 college athletics.
100%. Dalton, appreciate the call, man. Thank you very much. I got to jump.
Okay.
I got somebody from the 301 area code. Who am I talking to?
Hey, Gabe, it's Jacob. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate the coverage that you're giving today. I want to build on the recruiting conversation. So I did some looking back at some old flames that Odom wasn't able to get.
Mm-hmm.
Marcus Washington currently has 5 catches in the entirety of his Longhorn career.
Mm-hmm.
Shamond Cooper has a total of 5 tackles, I believe, in his Illini career. And players like Jack is a fullback, not an offensive lineman in the Drinkwitz era, and Jelani is a special teams player, which is just to say that you can't hitch your wagon to any of these guys, and you have to bring in another Marcus Washington, another Jelani Williams, and Isaac Thompson every single year. So my question for you is, what are reasonable expectations for the greatest assemblage of 18-year-olds ever to step foot in Columbia next year?
Well, and I think this is what you're saying, and I want to reinforce it because this is the conversation that we always have. On an individual level, recruiting rankings don't matter, right? We can rank a kid a 2-star like Brad Smith that can turn into a 5-star, and we can rank a 5-star
like Tyler Beatty.
Right. We can rank a kid a 5-star that turns into absolutely nothing. It happens every year. But the point is, if your class every year is ranked in the top 10, at the end of 4 years, we've probably gotten enough of those right that you have a better team than the guy that was ranked between 40 and 50 every year. Like, on a micro level, it doesn't matter. On a macro level, it absolutely matters. So, realistic expectations. Look, Missouri right now has the best class on paper in Rivals rankings that it's ever had. Better than anyone Gary Pinkel ever had. His highest ranked 21st. This one ranks 19th, and it's not quite done yet. They're probably going to add some more guys, but whoever they sign, some of those guys are going to play next year. I don't think there's any doubt in the world because they're coming into a roster that is lacking in talent, is lacking in numbers, and all that. So there are going to be guys that probably get thrown in that are ready, and there are going to be some other guys that get thrown in that aren't quite ready that you throw them in because in year 2 and year 3, it's going to make them better. But this is catching Georgia and Florida is not a 1-year deal at the University of Missouri, right? I mean, they were 6-6 last year. Could have been better. Cupboard wasn't completely empty. But you look at their 4 losses this year. Tennessee, yeah, it happened when they weren't playing very well early in the season and all that. The other 3 losses are Georgia, Florida, and Alabama. They're 3 of the top 9 teams in the country. I mean, if this is breaking news and upsets you that Missouri is not on the Florida, Georgia, Alabama level at this point, and I'm not saying you, Jacob, I'm just talking in general, then, like, I don't know what the hell you've been paying attention to. So I expected a closer game today, but I expected a closer game today largely because I thought Georgia maybe wouldn't come out and play as well as it did. If you had told me before the game Georgia was playing like that, I would have told you Georgia was going to beat Missouri by 3 or 4 touchdowns at least. So, yeah.
No, and I think you saw the weakness along the defensive line. That's hopefully going to be improved with this class coming in. And then I think in the long-term picture, when I look at how deep 2022 is just in Missouri alone, and I don't know, just even being slightly pessimistic about Drinkwitz's track record with recruiting, I think in 2022 he should have a top 30 class.
Oh, I think he should have a top 30 class. But and Jacob, I'm gonna add another call, and I'm gonna keep addressing this once we get that other person in this call. But look, the thing about Missouri is we fall in love with the local talent because it's the talent we know. Missouri's like, it's a middle of the road state, right? And that's why it's for high school football talent. Middle of the road at best. I would say probably kind of lower middle class, and that's why it's so hard to compete with Georgia and Florida and Texas A&M and Alabama. These schools literally could fill a recruiting class without ever using a plane. Missouri can't do that. You can get every highly ranked kid the state ever has to offer, and you've still got to go outside the state to add some other people. So that's one of the things Missouri fights against. And Jacob, I appreciate the call, man. I'm going to move on to the 229 area code. Who am I talking with?
Yeah, this is Aaron, Jamie Petway's hometown, but that's Albany, Georgia.
Albany,
And so
Georgia. Okay.
I was calling Albany. That's what I wanted to talk about were a couple things. The defensive line coach, Brick Haley, what's his contract status? Is he somebody who could be possibly let go? Because, he's not a drink with guy. And, the line is one of our main issues.
Yeah, I would have to look up. I don't know the assistant's contract status off the top of my head. Most of those guys usually operate on one-year deals. But I think, the guys who Drinkwitz didn't hire, if he's going to let somebody go after year one, it's the guys who he kind of held over rather than brought in. It's why I think a lot of us have wondered about Walters all year. But by the same token, I don't know if Drinkwitz is the type of guy that's going to go, that's going to fire somebody in a year of a pandemic where he has 59 guys on his roster, and that's actually higher than it's been lately. I think he sounds like he realizes you have to take into account all these things, and there's only so much you can do. Michelangelo can do more with a piece of clay than I can, right? But so if you're not Michelangelo, there's only so much you can do, and you only can use the materials you got to work with.
Right. Okay.
And they've got a lot of guys out on the defensive line. Yeah.
And I like Brick Haley as a person, but, with this, I know defensive line was a point of emphasis in this upcoming recruiting class.
Right.
Do you have any ideas? Are we talking about depth players or someone who could be an impact player like Kywin Montgomery from Indianapolis? Does he seem like somebody who could start first year, or is it,
Yeah, they've got 7 or 8 guys, defensive linemen coming in. I always have a hard time thinking a kid's going to come in and start year one in the SEC unless he's like a 4 or 5 star recruit. Montgomery, it's possible. I think you feel pretty good about Trajan Jeffcoat at, I guess it's technically outside linebacker, but it's really defensive end. I think you feel good about Isaiah McGuire, Darius Robinson. It sounds like Kobe Whiteside's going to come back. So I think they've got the start of a thing or of some depth. But this class really is going to help. Look, Kyron Montgomery is going to need to play next year. Mekhi Wingo's probably going to need to play next year. Now, whether that's starting or just kind of helping out and being a rotation guy, who knows? I wouldn't be surprised if they hit the transfer portal or something like that for another defensive lineman. But no question, that was the worst place in the roster because they knew they were losing so many guys, and then Trey Williams opts out, and it just kind of has continued to get worse throughout the season.
All right. Well, I appreciate all that you do.
Appreciate you calling. Thanks for the call from Georgia. I got the 785 area code. Am I talking to somebody in Manhattan, Kansas now?
Yeah, Gabe. I'm in the KCK area.
Okay, good deal. Who am I talking with?
This is Case. I'm Case on YouTube.
Gotcha. How you doing, Case?
I'm good. How are you?
Not bad.
I keep seeing on Twitter that all Mizzou can be is, an 8-4 team because we can never recruit or get the level of players that Georgia and Florida can. Now, we've seen Mizzou win 2 East titles. I'm not saying it's likely, but Eli has had basically an 8-4 to 9-3 season right now.
Right.
And right now they have the 50th most talented roster according to 247 and 13th in the SEC. So they're at a significant talent disadvantage. I wonder what he can make this program when he actually gets it up to 20 to 25 like he could be able to.
We've seen what this
after the 22 class.
Yeah, we've seen what this program can be, right? We saw it in 2007 through 2014 basically. What this program can be is regularly in contention for division titles. Now, 8-4 I think is a good, if you're talking average annual, that probably, you're not going to ever have a 12-year run where you average 10-2 probably. So over time, you might have a couple down years. Average 8-4 is right, but to say the ceiling is 8-4, no way. We saw almost a decade where the floor was 8-4 for quite a while. So I think the goal when you're at Missouri, and I include South Carolina, Kentucky, other kind of similar programs, Ole Miss, the goal is to start with the baseline being 8-4. Like, you win your 4 non-con games, you beat those other teams that are in kind of your neighborhood, which is Kentucky, South Carolina, Tennessee, Vandy. And then you hope maybe Georgia or Florida's down. You hope you catch one of the other ones on the right day. So if you win 8 often enough, which is where we're starting at, then sometimes you're going to win 10. And if you win 10 now and again, then sometimes you're going to catch that other team on the right day, like Gary Pinkel did with Nebraska or Georgia or Florida at times when he won the league titles or the division titles, and you're going to do that. And then what you do is you get in that league title game, and this is the only place Gary Pinkel never got. When you get in that league title game, you don't have to be better than Alabama for 14 weeks. You've got to be better than Alabama for 60 minutes on the right day. And Gary just wasn't better than Alabama, Auburn, or Oklahoma for 60 minutes on the right day because it was interesting. I was talking to somebody who was actually on Gary's staff a couple years ago, and or about a year ago when Missouri was looking to hire Eli Drinkwitz, and he said, I hear Missouri fans all the time say, well, we need the guy that can get it to where Pinkel had it and then take the next step. And he put it perfectly. He said, no, there's no next step. That's it, man. We were there. We just didn't win on the right night. That is the next step. That's as high as it goes. Then you just have to win the right game on one night. But the ceiling is not 8-4 for Missouri. Because, look, we've seen in the last 10 years that that's not true.
Yeah, and I think this is a team this year that, if they would have beat BYU, and that's a big if because they probably wouldn't be favored,
right?
And beat Mississippi State next week, it's probably a 9-3 team, and you're looking at a chance to go to the Outback Bowl or something to go 10-3, and this is probably the worst roster by far that UI is going to have here. Hopefully in 3 years they're sitting around 20 to 25 in roster ranking.
Right, that's his goal, right? I mean, he's recruiting at a level that I wasn't sure could be done at Missouri. So if he does that for 3 straight years, then okay, then you've got something going. Absolutely. And that's your hope, and that's what you're holding on to, and that's what we aren't going to know for the next 2.5 years.
Yeah, and it's not like people saw, nationally Gary Pinkel as Nick Saban or something. So I don't think it takes like the greatest coach of all time, like Dan Devine, to win here for 3 years and then just leave. Right.
And guess what? If he does, hey, you've got a really good coach and you've done well, and then you go hire somebody else good, and you deal with it. But yeah, a lot of reasons to hope. And today doesn't change that. In case I get another call, I'm going to move on. I appreciate you being a part of it. We're going back to the 636 area code. Who am I talking to?
This is Justin. How's it going, Gabe?
What's up, Justin? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good. I was just curious. A lot of the talk's kind of been about, in the trenches where we're overmatched, stuff like that, which is definitely true. But I think that's kind of where, to Drinkwitz's point, the depth shows the most. I'm also worried about skill position and both sides of the ball. Just curious, is there anybody you think that has the talent level to be special? Especially after Bolton and Roundtree leave. Is Beatty or Rakestraw or somebody on either side of the ball? Who's the next guy to be special? It looks like there's Georgia's head and shoulders above in that category too. I mean, which makes sense, but
right. I mean, what we saw today are what 5-star skill position players look like, right? Like, I'm going to look up real quick Georgia's top 3 skill position players. I believe Zamir White was the number 1 running back in the country. I could be wrong. Hang on. I'm looking it up right now. Okay, Zamir White, 6.1 5-star, number 10 player in the country, number 1 running back in the country in the class of 2018. James Cook, same class, 2018, 5-star running back, number 22, number 1 all-purpose back. So they got basically the 2 best running backs in the country in the same class. Now I'm going to look up George Pickens, who obviously destroyed Missouri, 2019 wide receiver, 6.1 5-star, number 2 receiver in the country, number 7 player overall. That's what 5-star talent looks like. And does Missouri have that? No, not on this roster. Now, does it have, like, we've seen Tyler Beatty show ability We've seen Jalen Knox show some ability. Are they George Pickens and Zamir White? They are not. They can make some plays. But you've got a 4-star receiver in Dominic Lovett who just committed yesterday, right? That's the kind of talent that you have to get. The 4 and the 5-star guys, again, some of them miss. It's not a perfect thing, but if you stack enough of them together, they're not all going to miss. When you have the number 2 receiver in the country playing with basically the top 2 running backs in the country, then pair it with JT Daniels, who was a 5-star quarterback out of high school, and I don't know about that tight end, but he was big enough, like he might be a 6-star recruit, so that's what that level of talent looks like. And is Missouri ever going to get to that? No, probably not. Like, they can't recruit with Georgia. They just have to beat Georgia on the right day.
Right. But so the only little rebuttal there is, I understand, this is sort of big picture talk for the whole conversation.
Well, we don't want to talk small picture today because it was ugly.
Right. No, for sure. But, does that mean we have to wait for a guy like Lovett maybe 2 years down the road before we have that guy? I know it's still not 5-star, number 2 running back or number 2 receiver, number 1 running back, but it just felt like we didn't have a guy like if Beatty and Knox on offense are our ceiling. Right. Great players. Again, sample size today, looking up against Georgia is tough to do, but, do we have to wait for a guy like Lovett to really have somebody potentially that can take the step to really, excel on the field? That's just
I'm actually
point, is that it's.
I'm going to say the unpopular thing that's going to upset people. I think next year could be a slight step back. I think really you are looking 2 years down the road before you're talking about a team that you go into the season with a realistic contend for the East. I think you're talking 2 years because next year you do lose Bolton and we assume Bolton. We don't know that for sure, but Bolton and Roundtree and there are other. Trey Williams already gone, right? Mike Mayetti could leave. Some of the better guys. So I think Eli Drinkwitz has done a lot in year 1, but also, you know what you lose in year 2 is the ability to surprise anyone. Everyone now and I think there was a little of that with Georgia today. I think Missouri had done just enough that Kirby was able to get his team's attention and say, look, people are talking about these guys, and they're saying they might beat you and might be number 2 in the East. Let's go in that talk. And his guys responded and did that. So I think next year could be a half step back. Now, there are things to feel very good about. Number 1, they appear to have the quarterback, or at least a quarterback. And if Tyler Macon comes in and can challenge him, great. Then you're in really good shape. But, I think you're 2 years away from any realistic discussion of being able to win the SEC East. So.
Yep. Cool. All right. Appreciate it, Gabe.
All right, Justin. Thanks for the call, man. Jump back to the 618 area code. Who am I talking to?
Hey, Gabe. It's Travis in Southern Illinois.
What's up, Travis? How you doing, man?
I'm all right. Hey, I just hope Missouri fans, I think we should all stay positive. Obviously, a little step back today, but, the amount of wins we've had this year has been awesome, and we're probably going to go to a pretty decent bowl game. And whether or not, as far as next year, we still got Beatty and we got Bazelak, and some pretty solid receivers coming up. With a regular schedule, you still think Missouri could get to the 7-8 win mark next year?
Yeah, I think it's possible. I don't know exactly what the schedule is. I know they play Boston College and then probably 3 rummies in the non-conference. I don't know. I haven't looked at it, but and then they'll play Arkansas. I think their West game might be. I forget if it's Auburn or A&M. It's probably A&M, but I think 7, is a good goal next year. And that doesn't mean you couldn't get to beyond that, but 7 to 8, I think that range is reasonable next year for sure. And I agree with you. Look, the overall thing is today doesn't change the fact. This was a successful season before today. after last weekend, when Missouri got to 5 wins, I don't want to say the last 2 weeks don't matter because every game matters. But even if you lose those 2, 5-5, that's better than anybody thought they were going to be. You beat LSU. You beat Arkansas. You know, you've kind of established yourself. You're going to finish 3rd in the SEC East. Like, this is a good year, and today doesn't change that. I understand why people are bummed out about today because there was a lot of buildup, and there was some hype, and you were starting to believe, and then it was kind of like today was a reminder, right? Today was kind of like that ice bucket of, slow down a little bit, guys. You're not quite there yet. And that's never fun, but that doesn't change the fact that he has overachieved in year 1, and people should be pretty excited.
Oh, absolutely. And speaking of 4- and 5-star guy, I imagine Missouri's going to hit the transfer portal pretty hard this offseason. You could always pick up guys from there. And Georgia today had Jermaine Johnson, who I believe is a 5-star, coming off the bench for them, playing in like sub packages. So let's not get too crazy here. It's still been an awesome year.
Yeah, absolutely, Travis. And just to kind of reinforce that point, somebody posted, I think it was Dalton who called earlier, posted during our game chat. In the last 4 years, Georgia has signed 16 5-stars and 51 4-stars. Missouri signed 6 4-stars. I mean, that is an average of 12.5 4-stars per class. You know, and oh, by the way, throw in 4 5-stars every. So that's what that looks like. Yeah, I mean, they basically start a 4 or 5-star player at pretty much every position on the field, and so that's what happens.
Thanks, Gabe. You're doing an awesome job. Thanks a lot.
All right, appreciate it, Travis. Thanks for the call, man. And all right, so phone lines are open for a minute now. So what we're gonna do is catch up on some of your guys' comments. I appreciate all you guys that are in the chat throughout this thing. We've been going close to an hour now, not quite, but and we've been having phone calls pretty steadily. So I haven't been adding the chat comments. So I'm going to do that. I'll add those to the screen and kind of address them. And again, if you want to call in while I'm doing this, please do call in. I'll make sure to get to the phone line when it's ringing. Once again, this is a Boulevard post-game drink, and there we go. We're going to go to the phone line in the 832 area code. Who am I talking to?
Talking to Patrick.
What's up, Patrick? How you doing, man?
Oh, doing all right. I mean, can't get too down on something like this today, you know?
It's almost easier to handle than like had you lost the Arkansas game 48-47, right? There was first drive of the third quarter. You kind of knew that one was over. By now, you've had 2 hours to process that.
Absolutely. You quickly realize, like I think what you just said, like you quickly realize that no, there is a difference between Missouri and their peers in the SEC East and Florida and Georgia. There's just a difference right now. One of the things, and is actually one of my son's classmates in high school was recruited by Georgia. He was the only 3-star in an entire recruiting class. You know, I mean, when Missouri's, the majority of their recruiting class is 3-stars, and he was the only one. You just, like you said, you have 4 and 5 stars stacked on top of you. So even if they have misses on them, on a player, they've got 2 other 4 or 5 stars right behind them that can excel or be better.
The one that always stands out to me like that. I remember when Evan Boehm was committed to Missouri, and like that was a huge deal, right? 4-star offensive lineman, like that was the guy in that class that Missouri fans said we got to get this guy. He had a brief little time period where he visited Auburn and decommitted. I don't even know if Auburn knew he was on campus because you know what, Missouri was celebrating because you signed Evan Boehm, and Auburn. Like, dude, they sign Evan Boehm every year, right? And so that's the caste system in this league, and that's what you have to overcome if you're not one. And Auburn's not even quite in the Alabama, Florida, Georgia level, I don't think. But that's what you have to overcome to win this league.
Absolutely, and it's I think it's good what Drinkwitz is doing in this recruiting class. It's great, but he needs like 2 or 3, probably 3. To stack up to where you can say, okay, now they can actually be competitive, and not that just that 1 out of 10 times you play a bad game by Georgia and you have a chance to win. After 3, hopefully you have enough where you can make it a competitive game. It was also good to see what he said about the offensive line, in the trenches. That we're just not competitive there. We've known that, I think, all year. There's been a masterful job by the assistant coaches and by the players themselves.
Like, there's a reason that Marcus Johnson is a Broyles Award nominee. He's 100% deserving of that.
Absolutely. But again, it's the Jimmies and the Joes that are out there, and you just see the difference. And it is what it is. They can rotate 3 and 4 5-star players at those positions to stay fresh, and Missouri really has 1 to 2 lines of players that they can actually get out there.
It's college football.
But,
I mean, all that talent goes to like 8 schools, and it's the problem with the sport, to be quite honest. Because if you're realistic as a Missouri fan, you started this year knowing you couldn't win the SEC, right? Because you knew there were only 3 teams that could.
Very true. You got to have your expectations set to a realistic goal, or else you'll just be miserable every fall. So it is what it is. Looking forward to in a couple hours seeing what the basketball team looks like. But,
Absolutely.
It's good stuff here, Gabe.
All right, thanks for hanging out with us, Patrick. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for the call. Patrick was one of the guys that's been with us all day. A lot of you guys have been on the various shows, and I want to reiterate kind of what we're doing here, right? It's 3:30. The basketball game tips off in 3.5 hours. What we're hoping to do is hang out here long enough to lead into a basketball preview show that will get you up to 6:30, 6:40, something like that. We'll see. Might have to do the basketball preview a little earlier, have a little more free time. We'll just see how it goes, but we'll jump back now to the 618 area code. Who am I talking to?
Hey, it's Jared.
What's up, Jared? How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing all right. I just had a quick question for you about, obviously we've kind of saw the talent gap and kind of piggybacking off of that.
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to get your opinion on kind of, I know we've had, started to have some success with recruiting and especially kind of some skill players.
Mm-hmm.
How much difference do you think that starts to make in the coming years versus, needing to get that kind of talent to commit on the lines? Because it seems like that's really where we were obviously mismatched today. Obviously they had an elite receiver, it was going off all day on us, but they had all day to throw a lot of the time, and obviously we had to stack the box just to stop that, bring all out blitzes just to stop that. When we did, there was just nothing we could do against them. So, how much do you think that makes a difference versus getting some of that talent on the lines and starting to even up the gap there?
It's kind of a 6 and 1, half dozen of the other, right? You need them both. But so Missouri has 5 4-star players in next year's class. They have a quarterback, they have a wide receiver, they have a defensive back in Dalen Carnell, and then they have 2 defensive ends in Kyron Montgomery and Travion Ford. So those are the highest-rated players in the class. So you're talking 2 defensive linemen, a defensive back, and a quarterback and a receiver. So I think the place where you can most easily scheme to be better than your talent is probably on the offensive line. I think there are – we've seen here offensive linemen that were not highly recruited turn into NFL players. Justin Britt, Connor McGovern, guys like that. I think a good offensive line coach can find ways to take a line full of 3 stars and make them really good. I think the stars are more indicative, like we were just talking about with the previous caller. Georgia basically had the top 2 running backs and the number 2 receiver in the country. You could tell. That's what those guys look like, right? And like Jalen Knox, a good player. He doesn't look like George Pickens. He doesn't play like George Pickens. He's a very good player, but he's not maybe number 2 in the country. So you need the talent everywhere, but I think the offensive line is the one place where maybe you can get by without necessarily a 5-star. Now, I say that because I don't know if I've ever seen a 5-star offensive lineman play. Like, I remember when the Rams took Orlando Pace, number 1 overall, I thought, I don't know about a tackle number 1 overall. Well, he was different like that, right? So if you get the right guy, that's going to kind of change the conversation. But I mean, the talent just kind of has to be upgraded everywhere. I know that's if you want to compete with these teams, I know that's a kind of a cop-out answer, but I don't know if I can really prioritize it, right? I guess the first thing you have to have is the quarterback. I feel like Missouri may actually have that. But then beyond that, yeah, you got to be good on the lines, but you can't have nothing at the skill positions too. I mean, it's almost like I don't know which one you choose first.
Right. Well, yeah, it's just it's just tough to see kind of us against these elite teams kind of getting blown out at the line so often. And I know it's a big talent thing, so I just kind of wanted to get your opinion on kind of what was more important there. But obviously you got to have both to be elite like those guys, and they have it. So.
And the good thing is the teams they're getting blown out by are the elite teams, right? I mean, they've beaten the other teams. Yeah. So you feel like you're in pretty good shape against South Carolina and Kentucky. And I know Missouri fans, like, this is what every school wants to do. You all want to judge yourself against Florida and Georgia. And that's the goal. And in 2 years, maybe Eli Drinkwitz can judge his team against Florida and Georgia. Today, Eli Drinkwitz has to judge his team against South Carolina and Kentucky and Tennessee. And he's the best of those so far this year. So that's not nothing.
Sure. Well, I appreciate it. I'll let you go and I appreciate your all your coverage, Gabe. You do a great job.
Good deal. Thank you. Appreciate you being a part of it.
Hopefully we get that a little bit more smoke and some fire on a certain wide receiver.
There you go, man. There you go. Definitely. And,
all right. Thanks, Gabe.
He is referencing Luther Burden, a 2022 receiver who is committed to Oklahoma. Who, look, there's some chatter out there. We'll see what happens, what becomes of it. But Eli Drinkwitz is recruiting at a level that hasn't been seen around here. And that should give you guys hope. And that should give you hope regardless of today. And regardless of, frankly, if you ever become Georgia. I mean, whatever. We'll get there, maybe, eventually. But even if you don't, the goal is to be better than Missouri has been. And they're on a path to that. There's reasons to feel good about that. So I promised to kind of run through some of the chat comments, and I'm going to do that now while I have a minute. And again, feel free to call in. I'll interrupt that to take the calls because that's kind of what drives this show. But Mitchell's asking if Mizzou mentally checked out of the game midway through the third. I don't think they did, right? We talked a lot about that in the game chat. I don't like to quit. I don't like to say that word. The only time I ever really remember saying that word was after it was, I want to say it was Mike Anderson's last year at the Big 12 tournament. Missouri got run out the gym by Texas A&M. And Kim English told me, this is the first time I've seen us quit. And so I wrote that, and then Kim didn't like that I wrote that, and then I played him in the audio, and he said it, and I didn't say it. But that's not a thing I throw around. I don't think they quit. I think they were outmanned. So we got the 573 area code. Who's on the phone?
Hey, Gabe, it's Brad. How you doing?
Not bad. What's going on, man? How are you?
Oh, not bad. Just got back from the games a little bit ago. It's been a great show, as always. Do you have a hot board for Monday, or are you
No, we're good. I'm not trying to fire anybody quite yet. We're set. We're all right.
No, I'm still planning for the extension and the grandfather offer for a drink. But yeah, this was it was a day that probably told us exactly where we are. I was kind of hoping that maybe the middle of the SEC wasn't as bad as it was this year. It seems like that's just kind of where we are. It's just like Georgia and Florida are so far above everybody else that.
That's actually what today showed me was the gap between Tier 1 and everybody else in the SEC. And look, maybe you want to say Alabama's Tier 1 and then Florida, Georgia, and A&M are Tier 2, whatever. But those top four teams, the gap between them and everybody else is gigantic. I think the SEC has one great team, three really good teams, and about, I don't know, probably seven, on any given day, you're all right teams, and then three that are just not going to beat anybody but each other, probably, in Mississippi State.
Honestly, Gabe, I think Georgia's winning the Pac-12, the Big 12, the Big 10. I don't see. I really think that the top teams in the SEC right now are on par with just about the rest of the country.
Oh yeah.
The ACC, Clemson's tough, but
no, I agree.
I don't know.
They're up there, but those 4 teams are in the conversation with everybody else. But the gap between those 4, like if I was doing a power ranking of the SEC, I would have Missouri 6th right now, and that shows you what the gap is between 4 and 6, right? Because I think Georgia's probably 3, maybe 4, and Missouri 6, and that's the gap. It's 35 points.
Yeah, no, I mean, and the block punt, usually if you get a block punt, I mean, Barry Odom always said this, if you block a punt, you increase your chances of winning by like 80% or something. It was something insane.
Right. So Missouri's went from like negative 79 to 1 with that play.
No, but at the time, it was, I mean.
It was huge at the time.
Chance.
Yeah.
Yes, and it was, I mean, we were having a blast at the stadium. But anyway.
And we were talking on the game chat, Brad. Like, we were sad that people weren't in the stands. Because at that point, after Missouri blocked that punt, how bonkers would that stadium have been?
Oh, I know. That's the one thing I miss. I really do. I mean, we're doing a bunch of air high fives and stuff out there, but, it's just not the same. You can't.
Yep.
Yes. I mean, it was, piping and noise and stuff is great, but it's just that was one of those game-changing plays where you could feel the momentum shift, and you kind of, I think it just kind of gets taken away. But again, it's 2020. Hopefully, this is the last year that we have to deal with this. So
I got you. Well, Brad,
I do have a question for you.
Yeah.
I love everything Franklin is doing, but the one thing I've noticed is against Alabama and against Georgia, we ran a lot of sideways plays, and I understand when you go horizontal against Vanderbilt, you have enough athletes to outrun them. I just felt like today we kept doing it. And I'm like, we can't outrun these guys.
Yeah.
In the passes to I love Bannister. He has been such a great player for us, but you can't run him out,
right,
out on a swing pattern and expect him to outrun anybody. It's just that's not going to happen. I just noticed that, and I'm like, I don't think that's how we're going to end up.
Right.
These guys on the right day beat them.
In the interception, you're throwing 29 yards downfield to Nico Hay. Is that going to work against Georgia? Like, I don't mean to insult the kid, but no, you're right. I agree. A little too much side to side. But also, that's the offense. And so maybe we're talking, hey, let's build a foundation. Like, we're going to do our things. And they may not work today, but we're laying the groundwork for them to work in a year or two with these guys. I don't know. I agree. There was a little too much. But the other thing is, you know what else wasn't working? Was running up the middle. I mean, nothing was working today, and it wasn't really going to work. So, yeah.
I get it. I just noticed that as a theme against both of those games where I'm like, hey, I don't think that's going to be the long-term way to get past these. And again, this guy knows more about football than I'll ever know. But
Well, Brad, appreciate the call, man. I got a couple people on hold, so I'm going to move on. But thanks a lot, and glad you got to go today and enjoy hoops tonight.
All right. Thanks, Dave.
All right. We're going now 314 area code. Who am I talking to?
Hey, Gabe, I think you're talking to me. It's Jordan from St. Louis. How you doing today?
Not bad. What's going on, Jordan?
Hey, man. Love the shows. I had first an observation and then a question for you.
Yep.
First off, my dad and I were at the game today, and we caught ourselves talking, and we realized that, and this kind of goes in line with what everybody's been saying about the difference in recruiting. Right. But every time Missouri had a guy downfield, in one-on-one coverage, we kept saying to ourselves, man, no one's open. Where are we going to go with the ball? And then Georgia gets the ball, and we're looking downfield, and everybody's one-on-one, and we say, oh, shit, everybody's got to set up right where we want them. Right?
Yep.
Well, not even so. I mean, I don't know what you thought from TV, but, from my view, I'm no football coach, but sitting from where I'm at, it wasn't even so much guys streaking downfield being open as much as it is, the difference in just the one-on-one ability to make a play on the ball.
That's actually a really good point, because there were a couple times.
Do you agree with that observation at all?
Yeah, there were a couple times where George Pickens wasn't really open, but JT Daniels just threw him the ball, and Pickens went up and got it, and like he made a play, and that's the one thing that I think Missouri's been lacking for like I don't know, since like LaDainian Washington, Marcus Lucas, Bud Sasser era, is the guy that you go, he's covered, but I trust him so much I'm going to throw him the football and let him go make a play, right? Georgia had two guys that made those plays.
And what happened to that? You know, I mean, I feel like, I don't know if that, I mean, I guess it is directly related to recruiting, but, you know, what happened to the years of just cranking out NFL caliber productive wide receivers? It's been a long time since we've had something like that.
It has been, no question. Yeah, I mean, they've had the only NFL receiver they've had in probably the last 5 years is Jamon Moore. And, you know, he's a guy that, like, he's kind of been on the fringe of the league.
Right. And, you know, and again, everybody's talking about the talent difference, but I thought it was just highlighted in our reactions watching the game, right? When one team's one-on-one, it feels like everybody's covered. And when Georgia's one-on-one, it feels like they got the matchups exactly how they wanted it.
Well, and the crazy thing was there were a couple plays where, like, Missouri committed just brutally violent pass interference, and Georgia caught it anyway. Didn't even matter, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, what are you going to do sometimes? Tip your cap.
And then, so Gabe, then my question for you is, you know, talking about the talent discrepancy, obviously, between, you know, Missouri high school football and nearly every other state we're competing with. My question is, do you know of any efforts, whether it's from Mizzou or any other state, any other universities in any other states, to help develop high school football? And I guess what I'm really getting at is, I could be wrong, but isn't Missouri the only state in the SEC that does not have any spring football at the high school level?
Yeah, I don't know about Arkansas. You may be right. It may be the only one. I know coaches would love it.
My question ultimately.
Go ahead.
No, I guess ultimately what I'm getting at is I don't know if you've heard any discussions or if it's even possible at other schools, if there was any long-term efforts or even possibilities of helping establish kind of that high school football infrastructure that clearly is behind other states within our, you know, SEC footprint.
Yeah, and I know spring football has been a discussion point, right? I know coaches would like it, and this is kind of what I don't know what I think of it, because it's kind of a conundrum of, would it help Missouri? Would Mizzou get better? Probably. And on the flip side, I understand the people who go, you know what, maybe it's okay if football isn't as important to us as it is to some of these southern states. I don't know if it's going to happen or not. I would guess no, because I think I think there is some value in kids playing more than one sport and things like that. But it clearly would help Missouri in the talent level. But I'll also say, like, I had a son who was a 3-sport athlete, and it was really hard because he always would hit 2 or 3 times in a year where he was being forced to choose which team he was going to try to work out for. And, like, the coaches would get mad that he was skipping a summer practice to play a game in another sport. And it's like, well, you know, what are we doing here to these kids? So I see both sides of the argument. So appreciate the call, man. I got to move on. I got 3 or 4 people on hold. I got the 561 area code. Who am I talking to?
Hey, Gabe. This is Jeff in Florida, Mizzou grad. How are you?
What's up, Jeff? How are you, man?
Well, that crash you just heard was all of us coming back to Earth, which is fine. It happens. I wonder about some of my fellow media members. I wonder if you could just give me your thoughts on this.
Okay.
I listened to the build-up to the game, and I hear the national types that don't follow the team as closely as you do, or the beat writers, you know, talking about how Missouri's defense is really getting after it and really whatever. And that was they were building that up to make this a game that was going to be really tight, maybe even low scoring. And I'm like, have you guys seen anything other than the Vanderbilt or South Carolina games?
No.
You know, it's just very strange to hear.
Well, so let me kind of interject there. And, like, look, I have friends who are in the national media. There's some people who I really respect, and I like to read their work and all that. But, like, I spend all day, every day, doing the best I can to be an expert on one team. And I probably don't achieve it, right? I do the best I can, but there's still things we don't know. And I've got to cover one team. These guys have to cover 130. There is no chance they're an expert on any of them. So when you're getting national analysis, it is 100% like watered down flyby version of what is actually going on, because they might spend 25 minutes a week on Georgia and 5 on Missouri, right? I mean, because they've got 100 other teams they got to follow.
Yep, I'm with you there. And I think today, as disappointing as it is to those of us who were starting to try to believe just a little bit, right?
Mm-hmm.
The miracle is not the, avalanche of points that Georgia scored in the second half. It's the how are we even in that game at 14 all with a minute to go in the half? And I think that still is a feather in Drinkwitz's, cap, because he's got guys believing who are clearly not, physically on the same level as the team that they're playing. I think that pays dividends down the road.
I agree. At 14-0, a lot of people had given up, and Missouri got back in that game. Now, it shows the value of a play like a blocked punt, right? A blocked punt gave Missouri a 1-yard drive. If we were being honest, if we had a minute to step back at 14-14, we would have looked at the stats and looked at that game and said, this game shouldn't be close. But it was. And so that kind of tricked us a little bit, and then Georgia went down and scored. It was 21-14 at halftime. If you looked at the numbers at halftime, Georgia was outgaining Missouri 2-1. That game more should have been like 27-10 than 21-14. So we got lulled into a little bit of a sense of this is a closer game than we think it is, or than it should be. And then the second half just kind of almost exacerbated that situation. But you're right. The real thing was, how was Missouri even in that game at halftime?
Yep. And I really didn't think it was over in the second half. I thought it was over at the end of the first half. We had all that momentum. We had all that emotion. And they went right down the field, and our backs, our defensive backs just looked clueless.
I thought it.
And I just thought, this is going to be a long day.
Yeah, I didn't think it was over at halftime for sure. But when Georgia scored on the first possession of the third quarter, I thought it was pretty much over. But you're right. That drive at the end of the first half, you kind of looked and said, that was almost like Georgia waking up and going, all right, let's go prove a point. Come on. And they did,
Yep.
So, all right, Jeff, appreciate
thanks for
the
good
call,
work.
man.
We'll keep listening down here.
All right, thanks a lot. So back to the 314 area code. You still there with us?
Yeah. Hey, Gabe, this is Clay Bierk. How you doing?
Hey, what's up, man? How are you?
Good. Game's not too great, but I wanted to throw in some unique knowledge, I guess.
Okay.
So my dad and I are season ticket holders, and we're up in the east side seats. So a lot of the TSF guys are walking around up there.
Okay.
And we've become friends with a lot of them over the course of a couple seasons. And Taylor Sanderson, if for those of you who don't know, is basically in charge of the large donations for TSF, and he's a good friend of my dad's. And we were talking to him after the game, and I see a lot of this in the boards and stuff as well. But Taylor said that the practice facility they're on to the point where they're now choosing location as opposed to if it's going to happen at all.
Okay.
Not to say that it isn't going to be expensive, but he was saying Drinkwitz prefers it to be right behind the south end zone where the current Golden Girls facility is. But apparently the excavation back there is going to cost an extra $10 to $25 million compared to putting it where the Divine, for those who know Mizzou, I guess Divine, right south of Divine, is an open lot, usually parked in for baseball. They're talking about taking that and moving into the practice facility. So I thought those were kind of cool points to throw out there. So I think I would prefer it to be behind the south end zone, of course, just to have football all right there. But it is a little expensive. But I also wanted to throw out that a lot of the critique on the DBs today was, like a lot of PIs, and like you're talking about, they are just better athletes on their side of the ball. But another thing was it seemed like not only were they just open down the field, but when our guys were chasing them, so we could never get our head around. That's why there were so many PIs.
Yeah.
For a lot of it just looked like they weren't even in the correct position.
Yeah, and again, I think it kind of goes back to what Drinkwitz said. You couldn't stop the run, so you got to commit more guys to stopping the run. And then once you do that, well, you can't cover them one-on-one, so then those guys are open, so you got to put somebody else back to go more, 2-on-1, and then once you do that, the runs, you just can't stop everything when you're outmanned, and because you couldn't stop everything today, you couldn't stop anything. right? I mean, I'm not sure. Like Drinkwitz said, we were putting extra guys up to stop the run. I mean, I don't know the point in that game when Missouri stopped the run, to be quite honest with you. I'm sure there was one, but I don't remember it. It was just, they were just outmanned really in every phase. And, I think things like today will benefit guys like Ishburdine and Ennis Rakestraw down the road, but I'm sure it's not very fun to go through when you're going through it.
Yeah, no, certainly not. And then I think the other thing is just, I mean, you're well aware of this, and I am for as long as I've been following Power Mizzou. Mizzou fans are very, very quick to make assumptions and decisions, especially in those forums and game sets. And I know emotions are running high, but
sports fans
I just kind of wanted to throw out again, right, that Rakestraw is a true freshman.
Right.
Burdine is a redshirt freshman. J.C. Carley is another true freshman. Martez Manuel, a sophomore. We're just very young, with the exception of Gillespie and Bledsoe, who I know are leaving. That's going to hurt a lot. But again, it's just like playing those 5 stars and all guys who are ranked basically in the top 100 in their respective recruiting classes, and having a bunch of young, not top 100 DBs in our recruiting class just makes that, extenuate further.
Right, and kind of like the theme we've been talking about, like Ennis Rakestraw, I think he's going to be a good player, and like Missouri fans should be excited about him. But these teams you're trying to catch sign Ennis Rakestraw 3 times every year, right? So, I mean, that's what you're up against, and it is tough. But like I said about being a Royals fan for 30 years, like if you ever get there, God, it's going to be so much more rewarding, right? Like just the struggle is going to make it worth it.
Yeah, and then the other thing that just a group of us guys were talking about when we were sitting up there is the other thing is when teams like Georgia and Alabama and LSU and Florida for that matter, sometimes even Tennessee, when they put in their second stringers, and like depth became a big question. We just don't have anybody behind our guys. But when I think about it, when those top teams, like those top 4 you're talking about in the SEC, when they put in their second stringers, those guys aren't the second level of talent on their team. They're just young. They're usually young 4 stars and 5 stars. They're freshmen and such. So they're not like, I think that's where the big discrepancy comes, is not only are they deep in the sense they have, tons of players at every position, but it's not even that those players are second quality athletes. They're just young.
Yeah, again, in 4 years, Georgia has signed 67 players who are 4 or 5 star athletes. I mean,
more players than we even have on a roster, right?
Exactly. Missouri played 59 guys today. So, it's tough, but appreciate the call and good information about the indoor facility. And I know that's something that Missouri fans are interested in. And I think it's a sign that the administration is saying, Eli, tell us what you want, man. We believe in you and we'll give it to you. So.
Yeah, absolutely. And I've seen Moon Choi walking around up top. I had a conversation with him today, but I just came on here. I'll try to squeeze some more info out of Taylor next time for the Power Mizzou fans. But that's another call, just to donate, buy your tickets, do all that stuff, because we do have our guy here, at least right now, who knows, like you're saying, a lot of people are calling for extensions and all this other stuff. Again, just supporting them now, buying tickets for next year. We can pack that stadium. But I also heard you talking about that blocked punt. That stadium would have been crazy.
I mean, it would have been like it would have been like John McAfee against Oklahoma level loud. Maybe not quite that loud because it was earlier in the day, so people might not have been quite as drunk. But
right. They didn't want to get off their butt warmers.
Exactly. But I appreciate the call, man.
It, man.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much for doing this.
All right.
Yeah.
Have a good one.
Take care.
All right. So that's a kind of toward the end there. It was talking about the what it requires from the fans. And look, it is the team's responsibility to give you a reason to go and to spend the money, right? I firmly believe that. Eli Drinkwitz is doing that. Gary Pinkel did that. And so I thought Drinkwitz was kind of direct in talking earlier this week. He was saying, this football team we're doing our part. We're giving it everything we have, blah, blah. Now it takes the commitment of everybody in the state. And that was not an accident from him. What you have here is an SEC football coach. You have a guy who knows what it takes to compete in this league. And what that takes is, yes, it takes the coach. It takes the schemes. It takes the guys. It also takes we're in the middle of a pandemic and we want a $200 million indoor facility. Or, hey, I need this plane to fly to see this kid or whatever. And I'm not talking about breaking rules. That's even if that's what I was talking about, I would never do it on a public YouTube broadcast. I'm talking about the commitment at every level of everything. And it is a question, has been a question, if Missouri has that. Well, you have a coach who gets this now. He operates like an SEC football coach. The things he says, the things he does, he gets what it takes in this league. And I'm sure that has a lot to do with, working under Gus Malzahn at Auburn, and he understands this league. So when he's asking for these things, look, he makes $24 million. He's guaranteed $24 million, $4 million a year for 6 years. There's no reason to extend him, but you want to keep this guy. What you do is you build him an indoor facility. What you do is when they can sell tickets next year, whoever they open the 2022 season with or 2021 season with, you have 63,000 there. And then the next game, you have 63,000 there. And then you donate to TSF and do what he wants. And again, I'm not laying the responsibility for a good program on the fans. I'm just telling you, this guy understands. He's an SEC coach. He operates like one. He understands what it takes in this league, and that's what he's asking for. And that's the last call was kind of about that. So I want to jump back again to your comments. There's a bunch of them. And want to ask everybody who's here to do me a favor. You've stuck with us for like an hour and a half. We're hoping to go another, maybe hour and then talk some basketball, something like that. So we'll see how it goes. But if you're still here with us, hit the like button. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Make sure you support our sponsors. That's Boulevard from earlier in the day. That is Burger Smokehouse. That's Colin Gentry Law Group. Anybody who really sponsors things on Power Mizzou, but especially these three that are making the things possible that we're doing on YouTube and streaming this year. Really want you to support them and liking the channel, subscribing, all that. It really does help us. It helps the visibility of the shows and everything we do. And it makes sure that, more people kind of have a chance to enjoy this. So, okay. Going to jump back to some of the comments, and I'm going to roll through a few of them real quick, and then probably actually what we're going to do to stretch things out and give me a break in a few minutes, we're probably going to replay Drinkwitz's press conference for you guys, and then maybe build up a second round of calls, and then go over to basketball in a little bit. But Stewart, need more than 3 to 6 great players in games like this. The not so good players not being able to compete really impacts the great players' ability. Yeah, they just need more. They need more guys, more depth. I think the effort on the defense went out the window halfway through the third. The defense knew it was over. I'm not sure Walters is the answer. Scott and I had this discussion during the game. Maybe there was, look, everybody knew that game was over midway through the third. So it's a little bit of human nature maybe to give up. Again, I'm not sure Drinkwitz is a guy that changes defensive coordinators based on a pandemic year in which you lost half your team, but we'll see. Tiercell says, blame Walters all you want. Mizzou was overwhelmed up front, bigger, stronger, faster, and kind of like we've talked, 100%. Just kind of rolling through the comments, and I want to just acknowledge everybody who's watching and make sure these get on the show. I don't even know if you're still watching, but if you are, I want to make sure we acknowledge it. Mitchell, who I know told us before the game he was going to the game, so appreciated him joining us afterwards. Aaron Johnson could see some changes on the defensive side of the ball as far as the coaching staff. It's possible. It's possible. Case called in talking about this, this discussion of whether the expectation should be 6-6, 7-5. We talked about that earlier. Bo Bayman said Mevis would start for Georgia. That's probably fair. I probably forgot him and skipped him. Let's see. Dan Dorr talking about, and this is the question he's referencing from Bill Pollock is in the press conference, which again, we're going to play that for you again here in a couple minutes. Just tuned in. Did he use the lack of depth as an excuse? He did. Yeah, he talked about it, which is fair. 100%. It is a reason, I think. Is Sean Robinson still on the team? Didn't see him before the game, but saw he was supposed to be available. Yeah, he is. Somebody said he changed to number 12, but he's still on the team. We were told before the game he was available. Fans Freeway JQ says fans are so fickle. We were just talking about the possibility of Walters being a head coaching candidate and losing him, and now we're calling for his job. Hey, man, it's being a sports fan. It just is. That's kind of the way it goes. Fans tell themselves lots of silly stuff like recruiting doesn't matter. All right, don't think it's about where they are in the SEC. If they're 7th but 12th in the country, that's good enough to compete with Eli coaching. I mean, if you're 7th in the SEC, you're really happy. Yeah, I mean, that's the ceiling. That's where you want to be. That's where you want Missouri in recruiting rankings. Dan's asking if Drink will push some guys overboard. I'm not sure if you're talking about players or coaches. There's not that many players he can get rid of. I mean, you got to be careful here. You're running up against roster numbers. Coaches, again, it's possible. I'm not going to rule it out because the defense hadn't been good, but I'm not sure that he fires anybody based off this year. I mean, it's been a pretty good year, and, the defense has made – look, it hadn't been great, but it's made some plays leading up to this. Built this game up as a big game, and we got smoked. Mizzou fans were excited, and we got killed. Well, I mean, it was a big game, right? Missouri didn't play well. Georgia did, but there's no reason not to build this up as a big game. This weekend, Georgia's in. Look, you got a 4-star recruit on Friday. Georgia's in town, top 10 team on Saturday morning. Illinois is in town, top 10 team on Saturday night. It is a big weekend. I mean, saying we built it up as though it's a big game, it was. It is. And you got beat, and that happens, but it was a big game. Let's see. Keep going. I don't know. I haven't seen a lot of temper tantrums, Alex, and maybe that's because I haven't been online a lot because I've been on here. But, I think largely people understand what happened today. Let's see. Session has been better than after some of the wins. Great discussions. Well, I think here's something that happens in a blowout, right? You just have time to understand, hey, my team's not winning today. So by the time the game's over, you're a little more calm, right? I mean, we had an hour and 15 minutes to understand where that game was going. You knew midway through the third quarter. If you didn't know at 28-14, you definitely knew at 35-14, hey, this thing's over. So you had some time to process it, and I think that leads to a little more rational discussion. Also, it was an 11 a.m. game. Maybe the calls after the basketball game would be a little less sober, reasonable. I don't know. Use whatever term you want to. But I tell you what, while we got a lag in calls and things like that, I'm going to play Eli Drinkwitz's post-game for you guys one more time, just so maybe people who weren't on at the beginning, who are on now, can hear what Coach had to say. We'll play that, take a quick break, be back in about 10, 12 minutes, and we'll go with more comments and calls and lead up to some basketball.
Yeah, good football team. Congrats to them. We're not there right now with our program and able to compete every down. Need your best stuff in order to beat a team like that, and we didn't have it today, and we got to get it back. Got to find a way to fix it and get it back. But hats off to them. We got to play better. Didn't play well enough on offense or defense. I thought our special teams gave us a chance, but offense and defense really didn't do anything to give us a chance. So with that, I'll open up for questions.
Vahe Gregorian from the Star. Go.
Hi, Coach. You alluded to this a little bit, but you guys have gotten so much done this year. But what did you learn about your foundation, I guess, today, and in terms of what you were talking about earlier this week?
Yeah, I mean, I was proud of the way our guys fought. I mean, everybody was still trying to encourage everybody on the sideline to keep on going, but we don't have enough depth. I mean, we're playing with 59 scholarship players right now. I mean, the NCAA gave us four-person penalty. That's pretty bad. That's a significant penalty. And then we've had transfers and opt-outs, and we just don't have enough depth right now. We're gonna have to find a way to manufacture some depth. We've been able to do that when the offense is able to keep the ball, but we weren't able to keep the ball away from them today, and just exposed our defense.
Mitchell Forty from Power Mizzou. Go ahead.
Eli, Georgia had some success on third downs, particularly third and long. Was there anything that stood out as a theme on some of those breakdowns?
I'll have to go back and look at the tape. I mean, some success is putting it nicely. but I'll have to go back and look at the tape to figure it out. I mean, they were open. You know, we got pressure a couple of times there in the second quarter when we got back in the game, but didn't seem like we could get back to that pressure. And so we'll have to go back and check the tape, figure out what it was, try to fix it.
Dave Matter from the St. Louis Post. Dave.
Eli, when you watched that in real time, where did you see that Georgia had kind of the biggest advantages as far as just personnel goes and matchups on the field?
In the trenches. Both sides of the line of scrimmage. I mean, they rushed for 299. They rushed for 316 yards, and we rushed for 22. So both sides of the line of scrimmage.
Andrew Kaufman, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, can you take us through your decision with 37 seconds left at before halftime to just kind of let the play clock run out and go in down 7?
Yeah, we were. You know, I had flashbacks to what we did at Florida. You know, we'd given up one right there and didn't want to risk. I knew they were getting the ball to start the second half and didn't want to risk really losing the momentum. Felt good being at halftime 21-14, told our team, hey, we're right in position. You know, needed to come out and get a stop, and we didn't. They scored every possession in the third quarter, and offensively we weren't able to do anything with it. So, you know, weren't able to mount that charge, but I thought we were in good position.
Eric Blum from the Columbia Daily Tribune. Eric.
Eli, do you think you win or learn more from games like this compared to maybe wins against Vanderbilt or Arkansas?
I mean, you try to learn from every situation. I don't know if you learn more or less from anything. So, I don't know. I know that I take every game, evaluate it, whether it was Vandy, Arkansas, or Georgia, and try to improve. And like I said, we got a long way to go. You know, our goal is to be competitive in the SEC East. And right now, the two teams at the top of the SEC East we weren't competitive with. So we got our work cut out for us. That starts with me in recruiting and player development.
Peter Baugh from The Athletic. Peter.
Eli, from your angle, what kind of went wrong on the interception he threw in the first quarter? And I guess, how do you evaluate his performance overall today?
Ball tipped off our player's hands. We're supposed to run a clear out with the X receiver right there. He obviously didn't get the corner cleared out. So I don't think there was anything else Connor could have done. He hit the wide receiver in the hands, and the X doesn't do his job. So, I mean, you know, Connor played okay. Didn't obviously play great. He's got to do a better job in the pocket, and you know, but he made some good throws. But you know, they're a good defense, and we didn't give them enough opportunities. You know, we didn't give our two of our better players, Larry and Beatty, didn't really affect the game. So that's on me. I got to do a better job of getting those guys involved in the game, and I got to call better plays. I mean, obviously the second play of the game wasn't a very good play call. So not the X receiver's fault, not the wide receiver's fault. It's my fault. Wasn't a good play call.
Soichi Terada, go ahead.
Hey, Eli, when Georgia scores, 4 or 5 straight touchdowns, is there anything you can do to kind of maybe slow down momentum or maybe give, your defense a little bit of a rest or anything?
Yeah, we got to try to get a first down. We got to try to stop the bleeding offensively by scoring, and we weren't able to do that. So, yeah, I mean, it all works together. Everybody's got a job to do. Our job on offense is to score and to get first downs, and we didn't do it.
Aaron Ladd, go ahead.
Eli, is there a message to your team during that third quarter where it seems like Georgia's just moving the ball and scoring at will? Is there something that you're saying, trying to get a stop there?
I mean, just keep encouraging them. I mean, it's not a lack of effort. It's not a lack of trying. It's just we weren't getting it done today. Like I said, didn't have our best stuff. So bounce back, come back tomorrow, flush it, and get ready for Mississippi State.
Mitchell 40, Power Mizzou. Mitch.
Eli, I know you touched on Connor a little bit already, but was he banged up at all from that, from when he had to exit the game? Was that a factor at all in his performance afterwards? Do you know?
Yeah, he was beat up. We're all beat up. Everybody's beat up. 9th game in the SEC schedule. We've been practicing since July 24th. It's December 12th. We're all beat up. So it is what it is.
Dave Matter.
I didn't see a whole lot of Gillespie in the in the second half after he made that big stop? Was he knocked out or available?
Yeah, he's got an injury that kept him out from returning the rest of the game. We'll evaluate it. I didn't have an update before I came up here, but I'll let y'all know as soon as I know.
Bill Pollock.
Yeah, Eli, this is the sixth time now in 9 games that you've allowed 35 or more points. Defensively, is it a personnel issue, a coaching issue that it seems like a high amount of points to give up on almost a weekly basis?
Yeah, I'll have to evaluate it, look at it at the end of the season. I don't know. I'll have to go back and watch the tape. I wasn't aware of that statistic. So, we're trying to do the very best we can. And, yeah, we'll have to go back and look at it. I don't know. It's a good question.
Ben Frederickson.
Coach, you mentioned recruiting and that gap that you see out there at certain positions in the field with the signing period coming up next week. How do you evaluate what you've been able to do in recruiting, and where do you want to go in recruiting to help kind of fill that gap against the teams like Georgia and Florida?
Yeah, I mean, it's a combination of recruiting, but we've had opt-outs, we've had NCAA penalty. I mean, it's not like, we just don't have enough guys right now to play an in-depth team the way we need to. But I don't know. My mind's not really focused on that question, to be honest with you. I just got my butt whipped by Georgia, so trying to figure out how to improve my football team. We'll go recruit, but I don't have any philosophical answers about, who we're going to go recruit and all that right now. I just know we got to improve.
Kyle Pennell, go ahead.
Coach, you've seen Georgia's running backs on film all week, and now that you've coached against them, what were they able to do so well against your defense, and what is the most challenging aspect when it comes to dealing with the running backs that Georgia had?
I don't know if it was their running backs or their offensive line. There was some good holes. They made us miss a couple of tackles. We didn't chase it down the backside in some of our schemes. Sometimes in our schemes, they had us with, cutoff blocks. So I have to go back and watch the tape. And we knew they had good offensive line. We knew they had a good run game. We weren't able to stop it.
Jack Sobel.
Eli, it looked like George Pickens was able to take advantage of the one-on-one matchups that he had. Were there any adjustments that you guys tried to make on defense to prevent those matchups from happening and help out Ish and Ennis?
Well, I mean, we gave up 316 yards rushing, so we were trying to load the box. And if you load the box and you leave the wideouts one-on-one, it's kind of pick your poison type deal. And so, we felt like we needed to try to stop the run, and we weren't able to do that unless we put extra people in there, and then that opens up the pass game. So just wasn't very effective today.
Looks like we got 2 more. Bennett Durando, go ahead.
Eli, you mentioned everyone feels beat up. Have you ever been in a situation where at this point in the season, it feels like everyone is beat up to this extent? And when opponents are scoring 48, 49 points in back-to-back games, where do you sort of try to regain that last boost for one more regular season game and a bowl game?
We just got to dig deep. I mean, that's football. That's toughness. That's what football's all about, digging deep, finding a way. We got to rally as a team, rally as a coaching staff. We've had a hell of a season up to this point. I'm not going to let this game define this season. I'm not going to let today's disappointed. We didn't have our best stuff. That's part of it. Wish we would have played better. We didn't. You know what? Our guys have answered the bell every single time. They answered the bell in the fourth quarter on 4th down. I don't question their fight. I don't question our team's fight. I don't question our coaching staff's fight. We're going to have to dig deep, get in the cold tubs, put a little grit, put a little toughness in there, go on the road and find a way to win. And our team will respond. They've responded every game. We responded when we were down, had lost the first 2. Didn't look pretty. We responded right there. We'll respond after we, got beat by Florida. We'll respond. I'm not worried about that. This team doesn't lack fight, just lacks bodies right now, lacks depth. So we'll get there. We'll get it. It's we lost, but hope's not lost. Like I told them, I'm disappointed in the result. I'm not disappointed in the team at all. So, we got our butt whipped. That's part of it, man. How you bounce back, that defines who you are as a person, as a team, as a coach. So, I'm not going to stress about it, to be honest with you. I'm going to stress about how we can fix it. how I can get more than 59 scholarship players, but I can't fix that right now. I got 2 games left, and we're going to dig deep, and we're all going to find a way to band together and win. That's what we're going to do.
All right, last one's going to come from Jeff Sentel. Jeff, go ahead.
Coach, I guess it's a question. This looks like this was an optimal day for Georgia. In your opinion, is this the quarterback? Is that what makes Georgia so much different than maybe what you've seen on film earlier this year?
Yeah, I mean, I got no idea. I got no idea if it's the quarterback or if it's our lack of depth or if it's their O-line or whatever. They just got a good football team, and we didn't get it done today. I don't really have a comment on, I'm not in that room with them, so I don't know what makes them tick versus what doesn't.
All right, so you got to respect Eli Drinkwitz putting the visor and the mask on pretty much like before he even starts answering the question. He's like, I'm out. I got no time for this. But in all honesty, like, I respect the press conference. He laid it out there. They got their butts beat. It wasn't a lot more to it. They didn't have it today. They didn't play well. Georgia played well. We've talked all about the big picture stuff throughout the last, 2 hours, hour and 45 minutes. So here's what we're going to do. We got 2 choices right now. I had hoped to maybe that this game would be a little more competitive and we'd have a little more action and we'd be able to lead all the way up to basketball postgame. We can do that if we have, more calls to take us for another 45 minutes or something. I kind of doubt we do. So what I'm thinking is I'm probably going to wrap this up in the next 10 minutes or so. And then what we'll do is we'll start a new show at 5:30 for basketball pregame. 5:30, 5:40, somewhere in there. I will set it up as soon as this broadcast ends. I've got graphics, I've got interviews, I've got everything set up for a Bragging Rights pregame show. My original plan was that we were going to have calls long enough to lead straight into that. Now, because of the way the game went today, and I understand it, I get it. The game was over with an hour and 30 minutes left. I'm impressed we've had as much participation and as many people here as we have. So I think what we're probably going to do is wrap this up pretty soon, and then I'm actually going to take about an hour break, maybe start writing, start doing some stuff for tonight. We will have a basketball pregame show starting at 5:30, and we will take you up 5:30 to 6:30, 6:45, somewhere in that neighborhood, depending on when Mitch is ready to do kind of the last, hey, let's get set for basketball and all that. But 6:30, 6:45, we'll take you up close to tip-off. Then you can watch tip-off, and, hey, yeah, that's a good point by Bryce Isbell. I forgot to put the number back up so nobody can call. So there's Bryce giving me a heads up, maybe learn how to operate your own show. So there's the number. If you want to call, please call in. We won't cut it off if we're getting calls. But if we aren't getting calls, what we'll do is we'll probably cut it for, like I said, 45 minutes to an hour. I'll set up a new show for basketball pregame. We've talked to Brad Sturdy, who covers Illinois. We've got some player interviews. We got Bragging Rights coming up at 7 o'clock tonight. So we certainly can do this as 2 separate shows if need be. Kind of want to run through, I was going to say run through what else is happening in the SEC. There's not much right now. Tennessee is leading Vanderbilt in the 3 o'clock game. It's now 21-10. That's a game that feels like Jeremy Pruitt better win, because if you don't beat this Vanderbilt team, I think you're kind of done. And speaking of done, Travis, and I just saw this on Twitter while Drinkwitz's press conference was going, Kevin Sumlin out at Arizona. So guys starting to get fired, Okay, we are getting a call, so we're going to go back to the line. 314, who am I talking to?
Hey, you got Tyler here on the call.
What's up, Tyler? How you doing?
Sneak in. Good. Great job with everything today. Want to sneak in kind of one last football thing before we break for basketball tonight.
Yep.
One, I just think everyone done a good job of kind of laying out a lot of the recruiting talk. I had kind of 2, one comment and one question. One comment, I think, just overall, even with today's loss, one, as an optimistic fan, I think I still look at the season as success because the goal first, I think this year was get back to the Tennessee, Kentucky, South Carolina level where we can beat them, right? Or even maybe slightly ahead of them in a couple of years, right? We were kind of behind them. So get to there. And now you work for the next couple of years and with the recruiting base to try and catch Georgia or Florida, once every couple of years, which is kind of the realistic goal. So that's the one comment. The question that I have is I still, and not just basing off this game, but even the last couple of games, for whatever reason, I just feel like Jalen Knox and Tyler Beatty, really the two guys that I feel like we have elite speed, have just not been in the game plan, or I guess it's tough to tell without knowing the plays of whether they're not even involved in the game plan or whether the other teams are just stopping plays maybe that even are designed for them, but they're just, you see them a couple plays here and there, but just nothing consistent, or they just go missing for like an entire quarter or entire half at times.
Yeah, I agree with you. Those are the two guys you look at and say, hey, they have kind of the speed to compete with these elite SEC teams. Knox got fed pretty early today. He had a couple receptions on that second drive and then a couple more targets. Beatty didn't even have a carry till, I'm not sure. I'm going to look up. I'm not sure he had a carry in the game. Tyler Beatty had 0 carries. He had 2 catches for 0 yards on 3 targets. Look, I'm not saying that Tyler Beatty changes this game, right? But
no.
But at the same time, I agree with you. Where was he?
Couple games.
Yeah. He has the ability to make some plays against defenses like this because he's made a play against Alabama. He's made a play against teams like this. And to see him basically less involved than, I don't know, Messiah Swinson is a little bit surprising to me. No, I totally agree.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's the one thing I try not to base anything off of just this one game, against a Georgia when it kind of goes like this. But I know he had, Arkansas, obviously he had some big plays, but even with the South Carolina and the Kentucky games, there was times where he just went missing for a while, and long stretches just where he's not even on the field, and it's weird.
And I think part of it is you have Larry Roundtree, who has proven he can take 30 carries, and he's a senior, and he's the second leading rusher in school history, and today's his last game, and you kind of maybe owe him a little something, so maybe that figures into it. I don't know, but I agree with you. Beatty, the usage of Beatty has been it's been up and down and tough to figure out this year.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's all I got. Great job on everything today. Excited for tonight. Reset. We celebrate for a win. Win. We sing tonight.
All right. Appreciate it, man. Thanks for the call. And we've got another call on the line, the 417 area code. Who am I talking to?
Hey, thanks, Gabe. Thanks for putting the number back up there.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Bryce.
Appreciate it, Bryce. I appreciate the suggestion, Bryce,
Oh, yeah, you were saying you're going to end it. I'm like, well, it'd help if you put the number back up there. But I appreciate you taking my call. I was at the game. Just a couple quick comments. My brother was running late to the game, and, we threw an interception, and 5 plays later, maybe they scored a touchdown. I said, hey, dude, the weather sucks. You might as well just stay home.
Yeah, 3:05 in, it's 7-0. Yeah.
Yeah, not going well, and it's well, those are the mistakes you can't make against a top 10 team, and, pull it out. And 5 minutes later, we were down 14. It's well, this really isn't good. Right. And, I was listening to the pregame show, and when Whiteside, when you guys said Whiteside didn't look like he was going to play, I texted my buddy, said, man, I hope we can keep this within 20. And then when we went down 14-0, I said, man, I hope we can keep this within 40. And I guess credit to Drink for, bringing it back 14. And we scored that second touchdown. I mean, first of all, we got the ball on the 1 yard line, and I thought it was 4-down territory.
Oh, 100% agree. Yeah.
I kind of that agreed to my second point, but credit to Brewing. I thought when we went down 21-0, or when we were 14-14, I said if we can get a stop here and go into halftime tied, I don't hate our chances. We got the crap kicked out of us in the first half, but if we can go into half tied, I can't feel too bad about that. And then they channeled their inner Connor Bazelak and drove down the field in a minute and scored a touchdown. You didn't feel too good because I was pretty confident we were going to be down 14 points, 3 minutes into the second half. And we were, and it went downhill from there.
Yeah.
I guess that leads me to my second point. you talked in the pregame show that you think next year the offensive line may be the same as it is this year. And, against the opponents in our wheelhouse, like you like to talk about, that's fine. You said we can scheme our way around it, and I think we can. It's proven that we can this year. But, when we get against this tougher competition, we got the ball at the 1 yard line, first down and goal at the 1, and then we're running east-west, not north-south. That's not a good sign, in my opinion. If we keep the same starting lineup next year, it's offensive line, that's a concern to me. But hopefully, Collison or Connor Collison, whatever his name is, he's better than Rivals has rated, which I think he is. And then the guy from Oklahoma, maybe get some help there. But I think we can scheme around it, like you said. But, against this good competition, I shouldn't be scared when it's first down and goal at the 1, and I think it's 4 down there. So I'll hang up and listen to your thoughts, but appreciate the show.
Appreciate it, Bryce. And the other thing to remember about the offensive line is Hiron White had a shoulder injury that's kept him out all year. Thalen Robinson opted out. Maybe he'll come back. EJ Ndoma Ogar, again, who Bryce mentioned, is a transfer from Oklahoma. So there is some potential help on the way. And you would think a guy like Luke Griffin gets better by playing another year, right? A guy like Zeke Powell or Bobby Lawrence or whoever might be at right tackle gets better by playing another year. Look, it's not an upper-level SEC line right now. But I honestly think the only games where the line has been a problem, and this, I know what this is going to sound like, but the games where the offensive line has been a problem are Alabama, Florida, Georgia. It's been pretty good all the other games, right? So that tells us where Missouri is. Good enough to beat the bad teams, not good enough to beat the good teams. I mean, that's just where it is right now. And I've actually been very impressed with the measured response, a lot of really good conversation, I feel like, a lot of good points raised here. Look, there maybe in this format, we're actually able to have grown-up discussions, and it's not like Twitter or a message board. But, I think there's been a lot of really good points brought up, and I feel like we've had some reasonable and realistic conversations here about what happened today and where it is going forward and all that. And I truly do appreciate that from you guys because, there are days reading a message board where if I had hair, I'd like to rip it out, right? Or reading Twitter, I would like to just take something and stab myself directly in the eyes. But I feel like everybody's had time to process this, and yeah, it sucked. You hoped for more. I get it, but it didn't happen. And I thought Eli Drinkwitz was very realistic and measured in his approach. And I think most of what we've talked about here has been the same way. Yeah, it's a bummer. You wish it wasn't this way, but this is what today was, and this shows you where they have to go. So, there have been better days, but the good news for you guys is some of those better days have been this season. And some of those better days are probably not too far ahead, given the trajectory of the program and what you've seen. So, today was rough, and I get it, but hey, it happens. So here's what we're going to do. It is 4:37 right now. What I'm going to do, I'm going to end this broadcast, and I'm not going to do it before I say a couple things. First of all, thank you to Boulevard Brewing Company, and earlier in the day to Colin Gentry Law Group, and also to Burger Smokehouse for sponsoring what we do here, for giving us a little assistance and making sure we can pull this off and give you guys kind of a different avenue and a different year to see everything. Also, thank you to all of you guys who have been here throughout the day. I mean, we had over 100 people on the pregame show for quite a while, over 100 people on the postgame show for quite a while, good amount of people watching the game with us until it got out of hand, and appreciate all you guys making this worth doing and kind of giving us new life, giving us a different way to do things this year. So it doesn't work without you guys, and I thank you for doing that. So before you log off, we still got a decent number of people here. Before you log off, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, do all that. But before you do that, don't log off yet. What we're going to do, I'm just going to end this. I'm going to set up a new broadcast for about an hour from now. I'm going to go stretch a little bit, take a break, probably walk my dog actually, but I'm going to set up a new broadcast in an hour. We're going to have a basketball pregame show. I've got interviews. I've got new graphics. We're going to talk to Mitch from Mizzou Arena. We're going to do all that. So we're going to take an hour break. We're going to preview bragging rights because, again, we started at 9:15 this morning. We started 7.5 hours ago telling you guys this was the Mizzou Marathon. We have done a half marathon. So we're going to do the bragging rights pregame in about an hour. Then we're going to log off. Mitch is going to cover the game, keep you guys updated on the website. I'm going to get some stuff written for football tonight and tomorrow morning to post on the site. And then post-game, we're going to be right back here. We're going to take calls again. We're going to talk bragging rights basketball. Hopefully, we're talking a little bit better game than we were for football. But again, thank you, everybody who showed up, everybody who stuck with us. And we will be back in an hour. I'm going to post a link on the message board. I'm going to tweet it out. We'll do all that 1 hour from now on the Bragging Rights pregame show. Thanks.